Welcome back to SeriousFun. My guest this week is Azimah Azmi. She is a lead trainer for GMB Fitness, and she specializes in helping individuals heal their bodies through flow. Azimah is not only one of my favorite coaches in my network, she is without question one of my favorite people in my network. In the past year alone, this woman has immigrated to the United States with her husband and has built a business from scratch during a worldwide pandemic. She's incredibly brave, incredibly kind, inspiring, candid, and her story is the epitome of the American dream. We got to record outside in her new home in Ocean Beach, California. So you're going to hear some folks having some serious fun of their own in the background for a little bit, but tune in. We get to talk about finding your people on social media, turning your darkness into light for others, breaking out of old stories to build the life you want, and how play can empower your life. I had a blast doing this, so please enjoy a serious, fun conversation with my friend, Azimah Azmi. Hello.
Live from OB.
We are live from OB. Yeah. Where are we?
Ocean Beach.
Is this where you live?
Mm-hmm. I live a couple blocks down on Del Monte Avenue. It's
So you
amazing.
walk here?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
It's freaking awesome. Yeah. And we're like a minute away from like these cliffs just overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It's the best thing ever. Like wake up in the morning and just go and sit and meditate, or just sit and just watch the waves and the birds, and sometimes you see like dolphins in the distance too. So it's like freaking crazy.
And how long have you lived here now?
We moved here actually right when COVID hit. And then our previous roommates, wanted us out, and and gave us short notice for it, and I kind of just trusted our instincts, and then somehow this place, and we found an apartment or through a mutual friend that was looking for a roommate, and then we found this place, and it was like just like a blessing in disguise. We were super stressed out because at the time we didn't know how we're gonna find a place with the whole COVID situation, but it worked out, and he had his reasons. He had a kid with like respiratory issues, and at the time we didn't know a lot about what was happening, so just kind of trusted our instincts, and I guess that was just our cue to just surrender into like whatever the universe had to offer. You know what I mean?
And it turns out that the universe had paradise to offer, so it's not so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we did a live start, and everybody that's listening, if they've made it into the show this far, they already know what you do. I'm sitting here with my friend, Azimah, and she and I are GMB coaches together. But I've already told people what you do. But I want to know a little bit more about who you are, how you got here to Ocean Beach, California. Fill some people in on who Azimah is.
Azimah is a lot of things. Let's start with my name and what it means, because I know that, you're like, what's that name? What does it mean? Azimah is Arabic of origin, and my full name is actually Noor Azimah. And what that means is Noor is light, and Azimah means mighty. So it's mighty light. I didn't know this until a couple of years ago, and only, since I went on this pretty crazy journey of just abandoning everything I knew. I'm from Singapore, everything I knew in Singapore, and all the safety and security of like living in certain self-imposed like systems and stories, like really just abandoning all that, coming to America and just building a life from scratch. Everything from getting to know myself, to reconciling a relationship, to, just rebuilding my business from like ground up in a completely new country.
Yeah.
And new environment and all that.
So one thing that we have in common is that we both know what it's like to be an expat.
Mhm.
Uh, which means that one thing we have in common is we understand how little is understood about how hard it is to be an expat.
Mhm. Mhm.
And for you to come here with essentially not knowing very many people besides people that you know on maybe social media,
Yeah.
and then your partner who's from the States, just coming here in general is bold as fuck. But the courage to build a business confidently in the way that you have, and primarily just through Instagram, right?
Mhm.
Have you used any other things that really help you drive your business? That your primary thing?
I mean, it's just Instagram. I've only just like built a website that is live now. It took me forever to build and stuff, and buy a domain and trust myself to build a website and keep it there. But it really was just Instagram and not even a lot of Facebook. It's just Instagram and the communities that I'm in through the GMB network, through just finding my tribe right through online. And I don't really agree with like how people are saying like social media is the enemy and this and that, but it's really the intention that you use it for. And for me, I used it as a tool to connect myself, to put me in front of other people during a time where I couldn't actually be out like putting myself in front of people, or couldn't really be out reaching the kind of people that I wanted, because I found myself in this story that, oh, people don't like what I do, and like there's not a lot of people like me, and blah blah blah. Well, fucking go find it.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got my head out of my ass that it's not good, I'm get out of this like story, a victim story that, oh, nobody likes me, nobody likes what I do, and all this stuff. Like, I actually found the people that are weirdos like me, and maybe I'm not supposed to be like this group of people, but then this other, like, outside of that circle, there's so much more to explore.
You've touched on so many things that we could spend like hours unpacking. But the first thing I want to talk about is just this idea that the internet or the social media platforms are good or bad, right? The way that you're leveraging the tool, because that's all it is a tool. You're using it to build and grow and share. But the thing is that a lot of people don't know that they can self-empower with these tools. They feel like they're a victim to these tools. So what have you done to really like hone your message through this?
Well, I think for me, just getting to a point where I really just had to surrender to like not trying to like control everything, and also to feel safe enough to go ask for help, you know? Um, Not, telling myself that, oh, this person won't give me the time and attention, because that, again, that's another story, limiting story that I tell to myself, that I'm not worthy attention, that I'm not um, good enough or whatever, right? But once I start just surrendering and like, okay, I need some help here. I'm lost. I can't figure things out on my own. And that's how that sort of just opened up, right? And I had to get really honest with myself with what I'm afraid of, and you know, even like the things that I want, and what are the things that I don't know, and just really sinking into my own truth about like who I am and who I aspire to be, and really always like checking in, is this my truth, is this my truth, and is this what I'm doing online in terms of like the messages that I put out, is this aligned with my truth, is that how I want to be remembered, because like for a really long time I have been putting content with the goal of receiving validation from other people, right? To the point of, almost like selling myself out, where I'm not really living in my truth, but I'm doing things for other people. And that is super draining. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the more that I just drop into myself and surrender and become vulnerable and talk about the things that scare me to talk about, but like resonate with me, like the more of that openness just comes, and the more people that think like me, want to move like me, or weirdos like me, just come out of nowhere, and these like opportunities and guidance just shows up, I feel.
So what I'm getting is that, you know, again, we're going back to the good or bad conversation, right? Like, just like somebody can use a pen to write a beautiful poem, they can also use it to write hate speech.
Yeah.
Just somebody can use it to use Instagram to build a beautiful business, or they can use it to obsess about other people and all the things that they don't have. So you've been saying, like, coming into my authentic story, coming to my authentic story. I'm going to help kind of patch some timeline people. You stated that you're from Singapore, but when you and I got to know each other, we did the GMB apprenticeship together.
Yeah.
You were living in Singapore, but shortly after you moved to Thailand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've skipped that part, and I imagine that itself was a big step, and seeking other the people that understand you, which of course the internet, if it's done anything, it's created access to your people and community, even if you don't have that in real life.
Yeah.
But so you moved to Thailand. I'm imagining, and feel free to share as much or as little about this, it's because you're breaking out of old story.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is to remove yourself from the situation where the story is thrust in your face and getting that space. So can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I moved away from Singapore to Thailand because I wanted to just kind of have a taste of what it was like living outside of Singapore. Because for so long, I was born in Singapore, raised in Singapore. All my friends, everything I knew was in Singapore, and I met Eric in Thailand. We were doing this long distance relationship for like almost 6 months. That's when, there was a job offering that came up in the gym that he was coaching in. And I decided to take the leap. And that in itself is, being in Thailand definitely showed me a lot of brought up a lot of like the unresolved stories that I didn't know when I was still in Singapore, right? Because I could easily distract myself to anything that was comfortable, whether it was the people I knew or like certain activities that I would always fall back to, certain behavioral patterns. For me, it was just seeking more validation from other men and whatever, right? Just being a serial dater, But that was all to distract myself. And then when I was in Phuket and then it was getting really serious with me and Eric, that's where things started changing my world a little bit. So yeah, and the time in Thailand was a trip, man, because it's a place with no rules. Everything from the road rules are optional. Okay, suggestions. Okay, people are not wearing helmets and shit. So you kind of feel kind of invisible at a time.
They're celebrating.
But yeah, that's where a lot of people go to too. Tourists, it was really easy to make really strong connections and then bye. Kind of short term. Not very deep, superficial, relationships that was really easy, and you just go after them over and over again. But then, it came to a point where I realized that some of the things that I was doing, also within our relationship too, that were just not working anymore, and that I needed to actually work on myself.
You know what's funny is because you're talking about this in the context of your relationship to your partner, and you're talking about it in your context of your relationship to your clients. How early on we go through this phase where we're working on those cheap, not very deep type of relationships, transactional in a way. And as you want to evolve and grow in your coaching, what do you have to do? You have to work on yourself.
Exactly.
You have to resolve old stories.
Exactly.
And these things are very, very much overlapped. And I think what you and I are imagining that we're transitioning in our coaching is that because we've integrated this with ourself, we've felt that floor drop away, that old story drop away, and then the only thing left to do is to rebuild with what you want. And then the next step is going, oh, well, what feels authentic and good for me in this moment? And then you go, oh, I don't even know what that feels like. I don't know how to feel for that. And so then I go, oh, well, I need these tools, right? How can I check in with myself to know what I'm a yes to, what I'm a no to? And one of my favorite things to teach people is intuition practice. Literally saying, hey, no. Not just what do you think is the right answer. Ask your body what no feels like in your body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And again, that started for me when I I had it some when in the martial arts practice, and that was me like early in my career. And then I lose that through CrossFit. You power lifted. We like, you know,
Yeah.
the
Ultra
lesson.
meathead
Yeah,
mode.
totally. And
Yeah.
you're taught to ignore what's going on in your body, ignore the signs, because that's not how you grind and get better and put in the volume that you need and all these things. And then that leads to a lot of shallowness in our personal relationships.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how many times I try to ruin it with my partner and vice versa. And then we get into the movement practice. We go, oh, fuck, man, I couldn't even feel this thing in my rib, or like, how long has that been there?
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, wow, if I can't feel this in my rib, what else am I missing?
Exactly.
And that's when the rabbit hole really starts to accelerate.
Like my time with GMB Fitness and, you know, having gone into it straight after like hurting my back from doing competitive lifting and jiu-jitsu at the same time, I think that really was like my first step into actually listening to myself. And, you know, I started out with just the intent of, you know, trying to understand my body in terms of how not to get it injured and like auto regulation and all that stuff. But then the more that I did it, a lot of the emotional and mental stuff started coming out. It's like, oh shit, now it's real. And once that awareness sets in, it's really hard to like turn away, because you know it's just there, and you know that it's linked to, you know, that pain that isn't transformed will get transmitted somehow, somewhere, whether it's your interpersonal relationships with your partner or like your clients and, you know, your family, anyone that you meet around you. It will bleed into all of that. And I got to a point where I saw all of that happening. I was like, oh shit, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I don't even know myself right now.
I tell people it's hard. It's hard to see, but impossible to unsee.
Yes.
You're trying to get to this new level, and it's hard to see. But once you've crossed this threshold, it's impossible to go back. You can't unsee these things. And once you've deeply connected with yourself, like we're now talking about this relationship to ourself that for some people will be hard to understand, because, again, it's hard. It's really difficult to see.
Yes.
Yeah. But what did we learn in movement? It wasn't to see so much. It was to feel.
Yeah.
And feelings are the language of the body.
Exactly.
Right? Thoughts, language of the mind. Feelings, the language of the body. And when you start to move your body and unlock all of that trauma stored in that tissue has to come with it. And then your brain starts to go, oh, what is this? What is happening? And that's why, to me, what we're doing now as coaches, especially in the movement space, is part of moving humanity forward, because we've really lost touch with this feeling. We've lost touch because we're so mind dominant, because all of the things are meant to engage with our mind.
Exactly.
Once people start reconnecting with the body, it's startling, and it can be very scary.
Yeah.
So just because I know you and I know some of your story, I'm going to poke and prod a little bit.
Hell yeah. No problem.
When we talk about like what it's going to take for people sometimes to really have these breakthrough moments, the way to get there is through discomfort and pain.
Yeah.
What were your pain points that you had to go through, and what did that look like? Physically, how did it manifest?
I felt I'm just thinking about like the time where it was like really like bottom. I felt like my throat, my traps, my upper back were just like super tight, you know, like there was something that I needed to say, or my body wanted to say, or my, I don't know, like inner child wanted to say that I wasn't, you know, allowing to communicate. And, you know, for the longest time, for as long as I could remember, maybe since I was like 6 or whatever, I was a kid that always kept quiet because I was afraid to, you know, cause trouble, or, you know, I was a third child, so I always felt like, you know, what I was doing was not enough. I had to always like achieve in terms of like academics or the things that I could do or whatever, but not necessarily like speak my truth, right? And I always felt that tightness until I started getting into recovery, 12-step recovery group, where I was finally seen by a group of people sharing their deepest, darkest like secrets and all that. And for the first time, I felt seen and heard, and then the pain started lifting, and then that helped me get more confident in terms of like speaking my truth within that group, and also taking the leap to speak my truth to my family, and coming clean to them about what I'm going through and asking for support through my family, even though they're like the source of like all the trauma and everything, right? Like just like surrendering, hey, this is me right now, take it or leave it, right? And really just hoping that unconditional love comes through somehow. Like if I get kicked out of my house, that's gonna be fine. That maybe that's a better path for me, and thankfully that didn't happen. But it's really just surrendering to that, and yeah, following that area inside me, whether it was that feeling my throat or feeling my gut like something's wrong, or feeling in my lower abdominal and my womb space what that means, and just sitting with it instead of trying to like, oh, I gotta get rid of this feeling,
That covering it up, getting rid of.
Exactly.
That is the inclination. That's that's the low hanging fruit of what we think we should do, right?
Exactly.
For me, it was like the way that I did it is I built what people would call like healthy habits as distractions.
Yeah.
Like keeping my place clean. I wasn't obsessive compulsive, like I had to measure doors and lock them twice or anything, but when anxiety surfaced, tidying was my way of relief.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot of times we build these mechanisms for relieving stress that we go, oh, this is healthy. Right, but really, it's still an avoidance technique.
Yeah.
It's still a way to avoid what's going on. And one of my favorite books is The Untethered Soul, and it's the technique that's presented is so simple yet so insanely difficult. It's just to relax into the feeling as soon as you notice.
Yeah.
And it may take you at first it might take you days to notice that you've been in this space. But once you start to notice and you relax into it, you go, oh, right. And then days become sometimes hours, and then hours become minutes, minutes become seconds. And before you know it, you're just this empty container. Well, one day I imagine I'll get there. This empty container where like, oh, things come up and I'm able to process through it right there in the moment. And movement was another thing that, to be honest, like I would use as a distraction technique. But again, it's a healthy habit. So for me, it was like, okay, again, back to the intention, right? Why am I starting this movement practice? Is it to discover or is it to avoid?
Exactly. Exactly. And, just also using movement as a tool, but not necessarily to kind of like avoid whatever, but to dive deeper into what I actually need, right? Because if I find myself in those states where I'm like numb and spacey, and what I need is something to kind of like, maybe I just need to play and kick a ball around, or just dance in my living room to some music and just feel my heart beating out of my chest to remind me that I'm alive, and that I have blood and all this cool stuff flowing through my veins, and I have a home and I have people around me that love me, and sometimes you just need that shake from yourself to get out of those states. And then certain times when I'm like anxious and I can't sit still, maybe I just need to not do so much and just focus on one movement, and that is my breathing for a bit.
Yeah, it's hard. Most people don't think about breathing practice as a movement practice.
Yeah,
but it's the core.
It is the
it is the movement practice.
Base like movement that anyone could like pay attention to feel better at any given situation. To be able to be contributing members to society and not be an asshole around the people around you.
Yeah.
So
you're in Thailand, you're discovering these or rediscovering these things, but you're addressing them in a new way. And you start to unfurl that. How long is this? I remember. So little tangent. There's a woman named Peace Pilgrim. I don't imagine she's still alive, but Peace Pilgrim became infamous for walking back and forth across the United States.
What?
And she spent like decades walking back and forth across the United States. And she changed her name, and her whole entire purpose was to use this pilgrimage as a way to promote peace. And she said something that was super fascinating. She said there was 15 years between the knowing and the doing.
Oh.
And so she said, I knew that this was the path that I needed to go, but it took me 15 years to take action behind it. So how long did it take? You said you were noticing these gut feelings but not acting on them. What was the gap between the knowing and the doing for you?
Oh man. I mean, I think this started like I guess the wounds started being like picked around like maybe I was like 19, right? But then I was in a different relationship back then, and that, was pretty unhealthy, and, I never got into like my space. So it took maybe 4 years until I actually like, oh shit, I can actually tune in, and that is the only direction that I need. It took me leaving Phuket because our relationship, wasn't working at the time. And like, leaving my dream job, freaking living in Thailand, rolling every day and going to the beach every day. And then I lost that too, and then going back to the house that I grew up in where all the trauma started, and, also like being broke and like not knowing where my next paycheck would come in. Just like it took me losing everything to realize that I'm all I need, to like, okay, fuck it. I'm just going to try to not hold on to all these other outside things, and I'm just going to see where this takes me. God help me. And then, one thing led to another. And, just the more that I went into the dark parts that really, really hurt, the really uncomfortable parts, and like sat with it, the more light came in, the deeper I could surrender, the more open I became.
They say like, well, the common phrase is to be the light, but the thing is, the darkest place is directly underneath the lighthouse, because we're being the light and shining out. Exactly. But the darkest parts are directly underneath us, and it takes other people being their light to shine light on those things, because we don't do this by ourselves. I mean, I imagine somebody, Himalayas, right? They go to the Himalayas, they're just like isolated, they work through this on their own. My personal practice is to not work out trauma with other people, but allow myself to be seen by other people that are strong and know themselves and are willing to give me hard feedback that I need. And the other thing that I want to highlight is that you said years. Yeah. And whether it's fitness and their movement practice, or whether it's trauma, or whether it's like realizing the life that we live. Because right now we're sitting, if anybody took a snapshot of us right now, we're in Ocean Beach, California. We're sitting in paradise. Our spouses are over here playing, looking like badasses. We got podcast equipment. We're in bathing suits. It looks so awesome. And people go, I want that. And then they'll go, okay, I'm going to start trying. And then they'll start 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months, 6 months. You go, it's not working.
It's not working.
Yeah,
man.
This sucks. I quit. You know?
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is that we realize is as the time goes, is that rushing the process is keeping it from happening. Trying to pull 2 years into 2 months, or 6 years into 6 months. Azimah spent 3 to 4 years discovering her own voice. I spent, it was about the same, right? Like, I had a real serious breakthrough moment like 2015 that just like heart explosion. Nothing is real. Nothing is the same anymore. I didn't know it could be like this. And then it takes me several years to click over and to actually start living it. And now we're on a 60-day road trip. And this is something that we talked about in 2015 when we're having these moments. For me, it was about 5 years between the knowing and the doing. And like you, everything had to fall away. But the thing is, I had to allow it to fall away. You had to allow it to fall away, because we can grasp and we can hold. And because if we lose it, it's all that we know.
Yeah, it's
And without it,
security.
what else are
Security.
we?
Safety blanket. Safety
Yes.
blanket. You
Yes.
know?
And identity is a really tricky thing
Ah.
because we use a lot because words we associate our identity through words.
Yeah.
So if I know Azimah, she's a woman. She's from Singapore. Did you grow up practicing Islam?
Mhm.
Okay, so
Mhm.
like there's another label, right, and another
Exactly.
structure that comes with this, and so the more that we start to add words to our character, the more either we start to bind other words to it that actually
Mhm.
aren't, or we tell other people what we are and they
Mhm.
think they know what that is.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm a coach. Like, oh, cool, you can teach me
Mhm.
exercise, right? I'm like, yeah,
Kinda.
kind of. It depends,
Yeah.
And so, what are some of the labels that you've had to, or frameworks that you had to let go of?
Ah. Um, I would say the first thing that I learned was that I'm not worthy of love. Without diving too deep into this, I remember being 6 years old and having found out some things about my dad that I realized that, oh, maybe I'm not worthy of love because he lied to me straight to my face at the time. And then I was just confused. Am I not worthy of love? And then from that began the, oh, I'm not good enough. So everything I did in school, I was learning a little bit of martial arts, some silat, this like Indonesian Malay martial arts, and I went for a couple of days and then cried and didn't come back, and then did like Malay dance. Everything I did, I was just like never felt like I was good enough. And then, um, yeah, the other labels I had to shed after I only managed to actually do it after leaving Singapore, right? Like, oh, maybe that I'm not articulate enough because I spent all this time like not speaking and not speaking my truth. Um, Again, still under the realms of not being good enough, and it's always that not enough or that I'm too young, because I didn't go to university. Right, I had to go straight into work. I went to work at a mega gym, and then shortly after that, a couple of years passed, and then I tried to manage a gym and things like that, and go like freelance and all that. But I always had that doubt because it seemed like everyone was going to university and getting degrees, and like that's how you know in this day and age, that's what is seen as like, okay, you're legit because you have all these like
That's the story.
accolades. Yeah, that's the story. That's the story I was telling myself, right? Um, so I always felt like, oh, I'm not a good enough coach because I'm not smart enough. So that all had to fade away. Also coming to America with like no financial support from my family or like no. I actually like intended on staying like just visiting for like 3 months to see if this relationship would work out and see where my time in America would take me. So I wasn't prepared to completely do the whole immigration process and all that. So I had to, yeah, let all those labels around, oh, I need financial help from my family in order to succeed, or I can't do this on my own, or I don't know how to take care of my finances. I don't know how to start a business because I don't have all these training in school or whatever. So all that baggage, all that stuff is just like baggage and old stories that weren't necessarily true. Because, like, that's not the only path to wanting to do what I do, right? I wanted to start an online business where that will allow me to work from everywhere, from anywhere, and train people from everywhere. And that's possible. And I don't need to have like all this help from um, family or whatever, whether or not now they do support me after like a lot of um like a little like dark period where we weren't talking. I'll get into that later if you want. But yeah, I think like the more that I stuck to my truth and really dug deeper to like all these reasons why not, yeah, the more I started to build a relationship with that inner child that was stuck there, that was frozen in time at 6 years old. you know,
Hmm.
just getting to the root of that and all that stuff. It's all learned, right? It's all learned from, the environment around me, the communities I'm in, whether it was like growing up in Singapore and then like the environment in Phuket, Thailand, where a lot of people were just coming in on vacation and like doing these fitness retreats and all different kinds of people, and then coming here and the kinds of people that I met and interacted with here. So just separating all these other like stories and what is my story and going deeper into like the root of like myself and spending more time in it and just practicing, going back to that over and over again until that becomes so loud that I can't ignore it,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Well, the name of the podcast is Serious Fun. And one of the story, which pre-selected itself before I got to let go of a story, which
Yeah.
was that I had to be serious in order to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And what happened is when I became like a business owner, when I officially like said, not just like a co-partner in something, like I'm standing alone. This is my idea. This is what I'm about. This is how I'm gonna make my statement on the world. Then I put on this business owner thing when I thought I had to be serious.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I was being very stern and kind of dry and prickly in moments, and I stopped having fun.
Yeah.
So I've let go of that, and what I've replaced it with is I'm taken seriously because I'm intentional. And so what I want to ask is, the name is Serious Fun. When I say serious now, what I mean is like, what are you intentional about? What are you serious about right now in your life?
Really serious about feeling my feelings.
Yee.
Because that's the source of it. I do it with myself, and I often go into those spaces with my clients too. Um, talking about like old stories, I used to think that being vulnerable was a weakness, but I've always been this like really soft child. I was never like the aggressive type, and one day I came to this realization that maybe it can be a superpower, and it turned out that it was. And the more that I just dropped into my vulnerability, like the more deeper connections I had with people around me, not just my friends, but also the clients that I have, and being able to not just be their coach, but like their friend too, that they can tell like all their, not all their secrets, but maybe if they want to share with me, I'm that safe space. You come in with a session with me, and it's just you and me and this space and safe space where we can have fun, we can ugly cry, we can be angry in the workout, just be, and I think that's what I'm really serious about, is really just feeling your feelings.
All
And
right.
it's definitely taken me to a better place.
The feeling of the feelings.
Mhm.
Well, that's pretty much where we started.
Mhm.
All right. That's what you're serious about.
I am.
Serious as hell.
Yeah.
I tell people I'm not fucking around about having fun.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was serious about. Right now, I'm serious. In this moment, I'm serious about doing what I want,
Mhm.
because I was doing things that I wanted, but I wanted it because I thought other people wanted it, because I wanted to be of service. So right now, I think I'm creating things that I want. That's what I'm serious about
Yeah.
right now. And to me, that is now the way that I'm having fun.
Mhm.
What is your relationship to fun? How has it evolved? And like, what is the thing that you love doing the most?
What was the first question again?
What's your relationship to fun, and
Mhm.
how has it evolved?
Well, I try to play every day, right? It's GMB's fun tagline, but always finding some form of play. If it's not through movement, then it's in my taste buds and the things that I cook. Anything, especially right now because I'm so far away from home, and a lot of the things that I used to eat at home, like that was readily available, I can't find here. So I just like play in that sense too. Then play in the sense of making the house look nice, or whatever. Or like right now, because I'm like building my online business and coming up with all these different kinds of offerings or games for my clients and my future clients to explore and play, not just in movement per se, but in pretty much everything. Even if like I'm doing the dishes, how can I make this more fun? Right? Finding a fucking boring task and making it fun, like farting and laughing at myself. And like the other day, like last weekend, a bunch of my girlfriends and I, we went to Black's Beach, this nude beach over here in San Diego, and I was like hesitant because I was on my flow, but I was like, fuck it, and that was my way to play. I was just like free bleeding, swimming in the ocean, dancing in the sand,
Yeah.
all naked,
Yeah.
and that was fun.
Yeah.
Anything that makes, you know, just kind of feels like my spirit's kind of like lighting up. Anything that my first reaction says, "No, that's stupid."
Mm-hmm. Play is definitely a feeling and a state of being.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you, like, there might be listeners that go, that sounds pretty radical, that version of playing, right? Naked on a beach and
Yeah,
free flow.
But
But it's not. It's only far out to someone who's just developing the relationship.
Yeah.
It's a natural evolution from someone who's followed this around because it's like, okay, well, I'm making up somebody that's listening to this show that's that's at odds with what you're saying. But it's like, okay, well, the question becomes, okay, well, then what about that makes them uncomfortable? And then that's an invitation for them to go, okay, well, like, you don't have to express by going naked on a public beach,
No.
but what is it that is keeping you from expressing? And you go, oh, that's a good question. And then you go, oh, it's a story. Oh, man, okay, is this a story I want to keep? And sometimes it's yes. Sometimes it is yes.
Yes, for now.
Yeah, or yes for now. That's exactly right. So the way that I'm helping people make some connections. Your fun is a byproduct of the way that you've been serious. You're looking into your emotions, and now that you've redeveloped and recultivated this relationship, then these other situations just don't seem that scary. Yeah. Because it's just you.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's so funny because in the end, it doesn't really matter.
No.
Because no one cares. No one cares other than me. And there's like this story in my head that everyone's gonna be like,
who's this girl? Who's this woman?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Nobody's actually paying attention to us.
Yeah,
usually.
when in reality they're in their own head about what they're thinking. Other people are thinking of them too. So it's this like world of make believe that everything's so serious when you can really just play with everything and it won't really matter.
Yeah, and it may take years to get there.
And it may take years to get there, but you can start with just. For me, it started with just dancing a little bit in my room, like locking the door and putting on some music and then just like doing some weird shit and like, just laughing at myself in the mirror and then just having bits of those moments every day to be like, hey, me, you're okay, you can have fun.
You said play, and you related it to food. I had a guest on. His name is Blake. He's a buddy of mine. He's a nutrition coach. And he said, we've always been taught the story is don't play with your food. And that's like one of his messages with his clients. It's like play with your food. And I think that that's such a valuable lesson is because when we say play, a lot of people, again, think that they know what that means. That may mean being physical, but like you said, it may mean playing with your food. It may mean doing art. Yeah. Just like coloring with a pencil or just doing something that feeds that part of yourself. And one thing that I try to teach is if you want to, maybe you don't know where to start. A lot of the clues are buried in our childhood. How did we play as a kid? For me, it was like outside was my happy place. And I was what would be known as like a Kenneth Sleep. I liked sports, but it wasn't because I had to win. Yeah. I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed the rules. I enjoyed the playing and the mastering and the getting better at things. And I find myself doing that now. So if anybody is listening to this and they go, okay, well, I get it. Like I need to play. A lot of that, the clue is like, how did you play when you were a kid? Do you find that to be true in the way that you show up in your play now?
Yeah. Not so much. As a kid, I really enjoyed just like losing myself in the time, just playing. I had like a shit ton of cousins. My mom has like 11 siblings, so we were always just playing and playing. It was never I remember I felt the most free when there was no like clear goal or like, oh, no one's gonna be a winner, we're just playing, right? And that's what I love freaking doing right now, is just moving for the sake of moving, just dancing for the sake of dancing or whatever, right? Just expressing myself in that whatever I am right now. And for a while I got lost in this like kind of like competitive mindset of this like, oh, these results are going to make me happy, right? Or this specific outcome is going to make me happy. And if I don't have that, I'm going to be really miserable, and I'm going to be so hard on myself because I'm a loser, right? But that's not the idea of fun that I, learned as a child. That was instead a way for me that I thought that I could get love, kind of like, and then realizing that, oh, maybe I don't need to get love from anyone, and I can like play with that, no intention of wanting to win or wanting to be the best or impress someone. I just wanted to play. If I can like spend more time there, that is the unconditional love. That is the, what you would call the Tao, right?
Yeah.
Where you're just in that state of like everything's okay.
Just like embracing things as they're happening.
Yeah, where like time and you can't play when you don't feel safe, when you're feeling stressed out. That's not playing. Then that's something that you're doing something.
Those two states can't coexist.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Azimah, I'm gonna say this, and you can receive it or not. Okay.
Okay.
Your story is a true, like, classic, what I would say truly American tale. Like you're bringing in something that is what the country that we're in right now is all about. You're an immigrant, a strong woman seeking sovereignty and independence, and you came here and you've done it. And now you're like living in one of the coolest places in the entire world. You're hanging out and doing things that people aspire to do. You're a strong woman. You're a brave woman. You're super courageous.
Thank you.
And I am truly proud to know you. And I'm not kidding. I'm not filling you up. Like, you're true. The reason for this show is to tell real stories and about real people. And while it may be fun to get some uber famous person that has a ton of draw, what I desire to do is help tell what I consider to be like real people's stories. And there's nothing more real to me than knowing what, because I know what it takes to be an expat, to embrace. Let's even forget about the fact that we've had this whole conversation in English.
Yeah.
Right? Not your native tongue. And like, it's so casual and effortless. We're on the, but it's such a big deal that especially the average American just doesn't fully understand what it takes to be able to do this. And so I'm hammering this for the listener, and because I want to really show you that like your story is something that is truly inspirational, and you have a lot to share to people, and my intention is to connect people that need that energy, and they already know that they need it by this point. If they're sitting here at this point and they're like, I need this energy in my yeah, exactly. They need this energy in their life. They need to find you, and I know that you'll receive them. So where can they find you?
You can find me at Muskelcat on Instagram. I'll spell it out for you. MUSKELKAT. And you can also find me at muskelcat.com, my new website, if you're interested in looking at what I offer. But most of my stuff is on Instagram, and I'm most responsive on there.
And you have tons of free content on there where people can go and learn for nothing. If you're a woman in grappling and you want to get moving and love your body,
peeps.
Go find the jiu-jitsu peeps.
Through.
Like always. Well, Azimah, it's been a true pleasure. We have a lot more playing to do, and at least one espresso to have together. So I'll shut this podcast down, and I'll finish with some sort of closer. And I imagine you'll be hearing from at least one person. At least one person is going to go, I need this woman in my life.
I'm ready for you.
Truly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Serious Fun conversation. This show is brought to you by you. If you like the show, you can support it by making a donation, rating us 5 stars, or sharing it with others. I'm committed to keeping the show sponsor-free, and I can do that with your help. You can subscribe monthly or leave a one-time donation. More information is provided in the show notes. See you next time.